So, hang on. Let me just
Yeah.
make sure this is all running. There we go. And now I'm going to share it out here. And it's shared. All right. So, let me. It's all running. Let me mute that. Okay, that's running. That's going. So I'll monitor the questions there. And so this is part of the Microsoft Community Office Hours live stream. So we are streaming on Facebook in the Office 365 community page, as well as out on YouTube, on Twitter via Periscope, and also LinkedIn. And so there's that beginning page. All right, I'm going to close that out there. And there's Hal and me down in the bottom right corner there. And we should have Sean and Mike joining here shortly. I don't know what's going on with the guys, but
Yeah.
you miss a week and things just fall apart. How'd last week go?
Yeah, they just. It went pretty well then once we finally got things up and running. We aren't you, and
I've
so
noticed that.
it
My
took
wife
the
has
tenant
commented on that a
admin,
number of times. No, sorry. Wait.
and, it took the tenant admin to start the recording, and none of us were. So
Ah,
we
yeah.
had to come up with a complete different Teams arrangement to get the whole thing to work, and then we couldn't get it going on Facebook quite right. So we did the best we could. We had some questions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's for those that are just joining that are new to this. So we do have some folks that are going to join, and I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to close out. Oh, I was going to send you this. This is important, Hal. Before we get started, as you can see on screen, so I'm torn as what of the help, but I'm Ms. Erminia Johansson has 12.512 million US that she needs help managing. I'm I mean, I want to do all that I can to help her, but all right, that's
Yes,
enough of
just
that.
send us a check for 1,000 to get things
Yeah,
rolling.
yeah, that's right.
Hmm.
I'm going to give her my Venmo, let her send over a couple thousand just to grease the skids, get things working.
Yeah.
But this is the Microsoft Community Office Hours. Right now, Hal and I might go very hands on with answering some of these questions if we don't have some help here. But I spent, of course, the last week I was in Branson, Missouri for my final planned final in-person event. And so I was out in Branson for a week, Monday through Friday. Got home late on Friday. It's difficult to get to the Midwest, to like Arkansas, Missouri from Utah. I had to overshoot, go to Atlanta, and fly back, and so it's most of a day to get back and forth for what should be like a 3.5 hour, 4 hour flight. But it was great to be. And there's
There's
Mike.
Mike.
It's great to be to get to see a bunch of familiar faces, bunch of friends. And hey, Mike, just talking about my North American Collab Summit experience last week and getting to see faces. Of course, Mike and Hal were both moderators for the event, so they were there virtually, and Sean as well if Sean shows up. But thanks a lot, guys, again for participating. It was a lot of great feedback, even from the folks that were there in person about the online moderators and queuing up questions. So quite a few people, were showing up that were logged in to the virtual the room and were asking questions and participating in the conversation. While the sessions were going on. I think one of the takeaways from doing a hybrid event, and for those that we were offering it in teams, and there's Neil, and Neil was with me there in Branson. Hey Neil, I'm just doing kind of a wrap up of the hybrid event last week in Branson. But so said goodbye to Neil and Amy on Thursday, but had a blast. But the from the a hybrid standpoint, I think one of the takeaways from it is that you need to have everybody participating whether they're in person or online, like in the space and utilizing the space that way. And so I think we're gonna recommend that for these hybrid events that everybody have a laptop and we'll have a moderator. But I think the primary interface that we'll work from and share slides and everything will be right from within Teams, even if you're sitting in the classroom setting with the instructor for the workshops or the presenter. I think there's value for everybody in participating in the one, stream of questions and sharing of slides and all that fun stuff. And Sean, you're still a pulsating circle there. Is your video going? We're going to together mode. There you are.
There he is.
And then I switched views here.
Sorry, guys. It's been a morning of problems from a computer perspective.
Yeah, no worries. I was just we were just talking about kind of giving a wrap up of Branson. Neil, any other takeaways from that event?
I would say similar to what you said. Participation is, while I think overall you would say it was successful. I think a little bit more participation, a little bit more verbal and communication from the folks, certainly on the remote side, would be super useful. Having moderators in the room. So I remember, Christian, you came into our session because you were presenting just after us.
Yep. And
we were fortunate enough to have Kent and Don moderating. So we got a lot of feedback. And our session went well from that perspective. But I know, obviously, if you think about when you're presenting live, there's periods of time where you say, okay, we're just waiting for this. Any questions? Or you wait for questions at the end, that kind of thing. It was difficult to get that same level of kind of touchy-feely, if that makes sense. Engaging with an audience is much, much harder when you can't see them.
Well, so what helped, like in mine, Sherry Oswald was the moderator. She was supposed to be online, but she and her husband decided to drive down and participate in the entire event.
They were there.
And having her sitting right in the front row and moderating the questions. So, my preference is like interrupt me, ask questions at the point, and so she would like raise her hand and ask a question. I try to remember to repeat the question, which is always nice for those that are just watching or they're in the room and couldn't hear her. But having that in-room moderator as well as people participating online makes a big difference as well. I think ideally, if you have this massive event, if your moderators are there in person and playing both those roles, I think you can have online only moderators, but I think it's the preference. I would say the preference would be to have those moderators also be there physically. You could do it either way, but I think it'll be, as I sit and have time to go through and think about this and kind of write up my thoughts and share it back. Because I know Microsoft folks were watching this. I think this was the first official larger scale hybrid event using Teams, and they're interested in the lessons learned, and I've got quite a few thoughts I need to write up.
Yeah, remote microphones.
Yes.
Wireless microphones.
Well, and we had those mics, and there was a little bit, I think for the people on site, there should have been some training or having somebody just to make sure that each speaker was something to cross off a list, that each speaker had time with the AV person trained and tested those things out. But yeah, that was a bit hit and miss.
Like a tech check scenario would have been good. I mean, because I know obviously there was workshops on Monday. A lot of people who were delivering Tuesday obviously arrived Monday. Some delivering workshops arrived Sunday. So an opportunity to, hey, how can I go to a room somewhere, just plug my laptop in, connect the wireless mic, make sure it works. What settings do I need in Teams? Those kind of things.
Right. Because
obviously you have to redirect your microphones. And one of the challenges we had in the room with two presenters, obviously, was we realized, because I'm a stroller, right? When I'm presenting, I walk around. So we realized that my audio. So Amy did the first part of our session on Intune and Autopilot, And then I did the second part of the session, which was Azure Sentinel. What we realized as I started walking around was that the microphone she was wearing was actually the one transmitting my voice. So as you can imagine, as I start wandering off down the room, people are like, oh, where did the audio go? So we ended up having to do a mic swap. So there was a couple of moments like that I would say we probably lost, of a 60-minute session, we probably lost 6 to 7 minutes just with little technical, not problems per se, but things you can certainly learn and get better next time.
Yep.
I'm kind of surprised because years past, the Branson folks, they've had a few folks doing tech checks and whatnot. You didn't have that this year?
There was technical people there. Yes, there was AV people there, but it was, you got to bear in mind, it was a very lightweight. Yes, technical people.
Gotcha.
It was a lightweight session in terms of the presence of people. You know, it wasn't like you had like an AV person in every room. It was not MS Ignite, and
Sure.
but that's not to take anything away from the conference. It was well executed. Mark did a great job as usual. It was my first time in Branson, so it was kind of unusual for me to be in a place where, one, I didn't know anywhere. I was like completely lost most of the time.
It's an interesting place.
Yeah, but typically if you're only doing an in-person session, all you need is a mic in the room, right? And the AV people take care of everything else. But this was remote as well, so the microphone, you had to speak loud enough in the room for the people that were in the room to hear you, and at the same time make sure that you had the right Teams set up for the actual microphone that was then presenting into Teams, so everyone on the remotely could hear.
And it had other fun stuff that we've all seen in Teams, where I had the right. So is when I first went in and did my technical check. So after taking it from the room from Neil and Amy, and it was the correct settings. Wasn't coming through online. I went in and toggled over to the default laptop one, and then toggled it back over to that same setting, and then it worked. Mm-hmm. It took that extra little push.
Yeah.
So yeah, loads of fun. Hey, for those that are just joining, by the way, so we're live streaming in a number of locations. But if you have any questions you'd like us to handle, you can email us at officehours@collabtalk.com. We're also monitoring out on Facebook and the Office 365 community group. But we have a number of questions that we have lined up. I know there was one I've added at the top of the list, Sean, that was a carryover from last week. And by the way, folks, I still haven't published the video. I will today from last week. So I missed it. I was in the air. And so episode 28 will be published today. And then I'll publish also this episode 29. And so you can find those out on buckleyplanet.com. And of course, the great thing about that, you'll see the logo and everything for Office Hours, is that there is a complete listing of every single topic that we cover, so you don't have to watch all 90 minutes of the video. You can just jump right to that segment. And it's going to be out on YouTube with that link list as well. So with that, so Sean,
Christian,
yeah.
Did you watch last week's episode?
No, I've not had a chance.
Okay. Just so you're aware, I mean, Sean was technically challenged. We had some fun.
Thanks,
okay.
Mike.
I don't blame you, Sean. Not at all. Not at all.
No help from you, youngsters. I'm looking at you, Hal.
Yeah. All right, so Sean, you had some homework from last week?
Yeah, I did. I was thinking initially to write this up as another blog post, but I'm thinking I didn't need to. Let me share this link in the chat window. So I'll read the question here in a second. So anyway, Marcel asked about license overviews for users and the assignment path. And this took a second for me. I was looking through the object model, trying to figure out where the heck this actually came from. He was trying to figure out who has direct and who has inherited licenses assigned. And the nice thing is, if you go to that link I supplied and read down probably 2/3 of the way through the PowerShell examples. There's a remove direct licenses from users with group licenses section, and there's actually above that a section on check if a user license is assigned directly or inherited from a group. That answers this question straight off. If he wants to export this, you just dump it into some sort of array and write that out, export-CSV. It'll do what he needs it to do. And if he has trouble with that, I'd be happy to write that up and actually blog about it. But I think this is the answer to his question.
Okay. Was that something, did you guys discuss that in more detail last week?
A little bit.
Okay. I'll link to it in both if that's the case. So, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That was which question was that? What number last week? Was it 8?
I want to say number 8.
Okay. All right. I'll link to that as well. So.
No, it's, hang on a second. Got to call me on the carpet.
Of course.
So that is question number. Yeah, it's question number 8.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, just putting that in my notes there. All right, well let's jump in. Did you guys have any questions that if you had a chance to take a look at the list, any that you'd like to start with, or should we just start with number 1 and go through? There's the answer. All right. Number 1, so Craig asks, I've gone to Outlook and had a look at add-ins and the options. Okay, this is kind of a general question. What are some of the best paid or free add-ons that you guys recommend?
Jiffy.
Grammarly. Translate. Message header analyzer.
Message header analyzer. That sounds interesting, Hal.
Oh yeah.
What's that give you?
When you're
Just
trying to
That
figure out
gives
what's
you,
going on.
it tears the message header apart into pieces and shows you everything that's going on with it. All your froms, all your tos, sent to, dates, recipients, all that good stuff. It's a nice way of checking to see anything you'd ever want to look at the message header for.
What does it visualize as? How is it just a list, or is it like a graphical hops where the message has gone through all of the nodes?
It kind of shows you all of that. Let me see if I can. Do I have it up here? Fudge. I have it in another one.
That's all right. I'll take a look. If you've got a link, if you can find it to any of those that you guys have mentioned, and I'll provide the links to those. One that I'm a fan of is Exclaimer. I think that the taking advantage of, especially in a larger enterprise, of the signature space as a marketing tool is underutilized in most organizations. And so Exclaimer is a tool that allows you to, just so everybody's clear, like I'm not a paid consultant for Exclaimer. I've worked with them in the past from the channel perspective, but I just really like their solution. But it allows you to go in and centrally manage display ads across your organization's email signatures, which is a really cool thing. So,
You're not only a client, you bought the company.
Yeah, you can shave with it as well.
yeah, that's right.
Let me see if I can make this work.
All right.
I think my add-ins are very lightweight. I just have the meeting plugins. Basically, that's about it.
Oh yeah.
I'm tired of
that's up
Outlook.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
Did I get a shared desktop?
Yeah, you're showing.
Yep. Okay, so here's the message header analyzer over on the right-hand side, and you got basically subject, message ID, creation, time, from, to, CC, all the original headers.
All the stuff we used to get before they started making it user-friendly.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty cool.
Yes, and quite useful.
That is cool.
If I can get this. I can turn that off now. Yeah, theoretically that fixed it.
Excellent.
Yeah. And find
Okay.
time. I have the find
Yay.
time.
Yeah,
That
fine
is-
time.
Yeah, fine time. All right, let's see. Question number 2. Raphael says, "Is there someone that I've that has used Mover to migrate from SharePoint Dropbox to Office 365 tenant? If yes, is it a solid solution to use to make a tenant-to-tenant migration?" I like that sound.
I don't know if
Okay,
there's.
so that's Mover from Dropbox.
Yeah, well, so he says Mover to migrate from SharePoint and Dropbox to Office 365, but is it a solid solution to use to make a tenant-to-tenant migration?
Okay, so I have to be careful now, right? Because I work for Microsoft and Microsoft bought Mover. So I'm going to be cautious in what I say. But in my experience of testing that scenario, yes. But bear in mind, Mover moves content. It is not going to pick up any custom workflows you may have published out there, any configurations, relationships, nothing. It's going to, if you say move this document library to this document library, or this Dropbox to this library to this Dropbox or box or G Drive, whatever it is, it picks up your stuff, it analyzes the permissions, it replays those permissions in the destination, assuming those accounts exist in the destination, or you have an appropriate mapping file for the source and destination accounts. In my testing, in my experience, it works great. Since Microsoft bought the product, I am no longer working in that space, so I do not know and cannot comment on anything since the Microsoft acquisition. That was okay, right?
That was okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say you tiptoed pretty well.
But I know people. And I would say, again, putting a Microsoft hat on, the investment Microsoft made in that product and what I see internally as a continued investment has been pretty spectacular. I would say that the work that's going on there would be tenant to tenant is a broad topic. There's multiple things involved in there, but from a content perspective, Mover is in my experience, a great tool.
Yeah, I know that there are, and this is a space that Sean and I have a lot of experience in the migration, SharePoint migration space, and there are very comprehensive migration solutions that are out there. You think of AvePoint and Quest and ShareGate, and there are a number of others that have come in later. Those are the 3 of the oldest, longest serving solutions that are out there, and there's a lot of complexity. So the distinction between moving content and moving structure and other components and identifying customizations. I mean, there's just a lot of that comes into play.
There's a dark art in that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's why I think the guidance has always been, the recommendations with the migration, regardless of the technology that you're using to do the move, should be to use that as an opportunity to go and clean up. Rarely are you what's called a lift and shift, just moving what you have in A over to tenant B. There's some transformation, there's some cleanup that's going on. If everything were fine,
despite what other consulting companies like to say,
right,
lift and shift is seldom a reality.
Right. It's if you're doing a lift and shift, it's usually it's because you've messed up in your planning and finance is cutting the cord. You're turning off those licenses and you just need to move the garbage over and then you'll spend months to clean that up. When it's done correctly, it's a process where you're flattening your structure, you are unifying content types and really cleaning up what's out there, and then you really truly are just moving the content from A to B and organizing that. And so something like Mover could work for that. But again, the reality is that it's usually a much more complex story than just moving content.
Hey, Mike, do I see a Space Invader on your shirt?
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
Oh,
T-shirt time.
let's do it, Mike. Do the reveal.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Top notch.
Is just the photo? Does it have any text on it?
No,
That's awesome.
no text.
Very
And
cool.
your water bear there, Christian. I'm
Yeah.
not sure I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. For those that it's just one that my wife is not going to be thrilled about when she sees.
Oh.
She's already not a fan that I wear the graphic tees, and I'm like, I work in the basement. Come on, I'm be comfortable in t-shirts and so the you know, as you know, the $6 shirts. This is just a random thing. I just like that's what I want. Is I want like a microbial parasite thing on a t-shirt. Yeah, that's it. Okay, bring it. Oh, you disappeared.
What?
Here, let me switch.
I'm not sharing a background.
Let me. But I'm broadcasting in together mode. Let me move. There we go.
Mine's boring. Just
Oakley.
not boring.
All right.
It's old.
Let me know when you can see.
Oh
Christian.
no, I can see it, Sean. We're all
because you
here
broke
because
something.
that's perfect for this for these sessions. We are here, people, because you broke something.
Or think you broke something.
Okay. All right, switching back over to together mode. Anyone else? Hal, anything interesting today?
T-shirt wise, no. This is something I had on yesterday cleaning the house, so it's
Christian, I think we
It
need
has
to
nothing
buy
fancy
Hal
on
a
it.
T-shirt and
Yeah.
send
yes,
it
you
his.
do.
I think so.
Hal, we're going to start dressing you for these shows.
Oh my goodness!
Hey, we are. So Mark and I were talking about this. So we are going to. If you didn't see it, we're going to try and get the North American Collab Summit T-shirts out to all of the online moderators. So the three of you
Oh, cool!
should get some
Extra
swag.
large, please.
Yeah.
Love that.
So did you? If you didn't see the link, it was sent out in the speaker and moderator room. There's a link you actually need to go click on and provide your shipping info.
You never told us there was a moderator room.
Yep.
I didn't even know there was a moderator room.
The speaker
I didn't either.
speaker and volunteer room.
Oh, didn't even. We got nothing ahead of that, Christian. We got nothing.
No, there was a lot, Mike. It was shared in the speaker and volunteer channel.
Yeah, it's like 10 minutes before the whole thing starts, and I'm sitting in my room, and I'm like, "Am I supposed to be here?" I don't even know if I'm okay. I didn't even know what room I was in, and then he sends out an email like 10 minutes before the whole thing starts, going, "Oh, these are your rooms," and I'm like, "Oh, I guess I'm supposed to be over here."
It worked for me like clockwork day one, but day two, I come to my room. It showed a free session on the second day, and then I showed up, and somebody's like, there was a mix-up. I actually just got done recording the whole thing, and I'm like, so either way, I mean, it worked out as well as it's going to. There's always going to be some sort of error.
We can go into the history of what happened with the links, and there's other problems with that. But little things like I didn't. So as one of the, so I thought I had the permissions, but once the private channel, and I was an owner of that, I could not add people to it. Mark had to do that.
Hey, Christian, if you haven't watched the beginning of the video from last week where Hal, Mike, and I were basically floundering, I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
After seeing that, if people, I'm assuming you're going to cut that, but after seeing that, if people still watch us, it'll be a miracle.
That goes to the blooper reel. That's where that goes.
It depends on how entertaining it is to me, whether it shows up in the video or not.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
All right, let's jump over to question number 3. So VJ asks, when I leave a channel in Teams, am I still part of that team where the channel belongs?
Yes.
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 I think we have
Answer.
consensus.
Quick answer. Yes.
Permissions wise, Spiritually, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
This is the softball, right?
Yeah. No. Well, if there's anything else you want to say around, is it like so? Sometimes it can be just a simple answer the question and
Yes.
move on.
Well, it's obvious.
So-
The team is separate from the channel.
Yeah.
I mean, the team contains the channels. You can, join multiple channels and leave multiple channels within the team. So,
Of course, you could be a member of a private channel and not be a member of the team.
is that possible? I don't think it is.
Isn't
Because
it?
you have to be a member of
External?
the team. The channel is
Yeah,
part of the team. The channel is linked to the team.
Is it?
So either way, you have to
because
have access to
essentially a private channel is like the creation of an entirely separate team.
it. I don't think so.
No,
Well,
it's
I
a
don't
it's a
think
it's
so.
a lockdown folder in a document library. Well, there's more to it than that, but I just went through this, Christian, with we did this is kind of basic, but we did a team offsite, virtual offsite,
Mhm.
and I was part of the team establishing a scavenger hunt. And part of establishing the scavenger hunt, we had to create separate private channels for people to like upload their scavenger hunt, collect photos of this, collect pictures of you doing this. And there was a list of questions, and some of the questions were like, when did the Microsoft split their micro-soft into Microsoft? And they had to answer those questions in an Excel spreadsheet that was inside their channel. So we had to make them private so people couldn't start copying and pasting other people's answers. In order to create the permissions on those channels, I had to add the person
To the team.
the before I could resolve them in the channel. Having said that, there was once or twice where one of my co-workers, we had like 10 teams, so it wasn't just one person doing the effort. They said they were able to add the person directly to the private channel without adding to the team. However, that person then couldn't resolve the team. They couldn't resolve the channel. They had to go back and be re-added to the team, removed from the channel and re-added back.
Just
So there's an interesting paradigm.
And just to clarify too, is that so my foggy memory of this was it really comes from the discussions before the private channels went live. There was discussion about that scenario, and so now they made a bunch of architectural decisions. It became available. I've not gone in and played with that scenario. I just remember that having that discussion about that you could have people that are added that are guests for all intents and purposes that are not a member of the team. But you're saying no, that so they've which I think is the right decision to make, that they need to be a member of that team to then have access to a channel, whether it's public or private.
Yeah, and if you think about the old school kind of SharePoint scenario, you have to be added to the site collection before you can be added. Well, maybe not strictly speaking true. But if you added to a document library inside a SharePoint site, right, you'll end up with like, what do they call it? I forget the old school
Restricted read.
Restricted read, yeah. To the site itself. So it's kind of I think it's probably worth. No, I'm not saying the word because you'll give me the homework. But it's probably worth looking up.
Nice dodge, Neil.
I still said the word though.
All right, I've got to check something. There might be a problem with the live stream, but I'm going to ask the next question while you guys are discussing. I'm going to go and check and see what's going on there. But question number 4, Camila asks, this is every time I try to log into my account, it says login error. You must accept the invitation to join this organization in the Teams app. Please help. I don't know what to do. I've reinstalled the app already and it didn't help. Problem only appears on a mobile phone app. On my PC, everything is fine. So mobile app saying login error. You must accept the invitation to join this organization in the Teams app. So I mean, my first thought is like that sounds like an error where you're logged in. You've got different login credentials, and so it's erroring out that if you've got like the mobile, if you have the browser and you're trying to log into something, but you're logged in on the desktop under different credentials, you might receive that kind of error message, but not in the mobile app. I don't know. You guys' thoughts?
I can't say I've ever seen that. Maybe test it through the web. Just test it in the the Edge client or whatever preferred browser you have, and see if that lets you in.
Are you saying on their phone or whatever, the mobile source is, Neil, or their PC?
Well, I'd say both, maybe, just to test, see if we can kind of get the full spectrum of what's broken.
I definitely want to test from the mobile device that's having the problem. That's weird.
Is the device, here's another possibility, is their PC or their
phone or
mobile
whatever,
device
the mobile
like
source?
MDM managed? You know, are we looking at an Intune enrolled device? Are we looking at, another MDM style scenario that could potentially cause restriction issues? Yeah.
That makes sense, potentially.
Yeah, but I think if the client on the PC is working,
It's probably not an endpoint problem.
no. Well, unless if the PC is enrolled in Intune, but the mobile device is not, and there's a compliance policy that says you must be enrolled, the device must be enrolled and have a specific policies pushed down, then you're going to have a problem. Like in Teams, on my mobile phone, right? I have an iPhone. It's my personal device, but it's enrolled into the Microsoft MDM manager. It's enrolled into Intune. If I don't enroll it into Intune, I cannot access Microsoft Teams. It says you must, whatever. I forget the error message specifically, but it just will not let me. So that could be an issue. I'm not saying it is in this case, but it's a potential investigative scenario. And I'm trying a web browser again. When I was in Branson, for example, I really dislike signing out of Teams and moving to a different, signing out of one organization and signing into another.
We were talking about before you joined that Hal and I were talking about, like, the multi-tenant issue has to be resolved. It's not. It's becoming more and more common. I'm a member of 5 different tenants and then dozens of guests, guest tenants.
Yeah, that process needs to be slicker.
Yep.
Or have the ability to run multiple Teams clients on one PC. Now that's probably entirely different scenario. I know you can do it with that. There is a sandbox tool you can use that will do that. You can do that in, but
yeah, well, Christian and I are using it. It's called Rambox.
Yeah, Rambox or multiple browser tabs.
Browser tabs is how
incognito. That's how most people do that.
Browser tabs.
And, which would be fine if you had parity between the desktop and the browser.
It's good, but it's not 100%.
It's not.
Yeah, I wouldn't even rate it 60, 70%, really, because there's a whole lot of features missing from the web browser.
Yeah. Yeah. If all you're trying to do, if you're trying to participate in threaded discussion, I mean, I still, I would love to see somebody go build the solution. I need to go build it. I need to partner with somebody to build a new interface that allows the multiple streams in one view. Anyway, yeah. But, it's a problem, Neil.
Yeah, multi-tenant's not easy. It never has been.
Yeah.
Right? Think about SharePoint 2010. How many people got that wrong?
No.
Sorry, Sean.
Jeez, no.
You're having flashbacks now, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Thanks, Neil.
Yeah, it's a good. I would definitely go down the path though of investigating the MDM approach. I suspect that the desktop machine is somehow approved from a compliance standpoint, and perhaps the mobile device is not.
Yeah, is it a company laptop or no?
Yeah. So was it rolled in autopilot? Does it have Intune policies applied? All that kind of thing. Okay, so here's another thing. When you can see the videos, go look at me and Amy's session from Branson because we talked about this stuff. So it's all out there. Or alternatively, there's a fantastic blog out there on this stuff. It's called oofhours.com, OOFhours.com. It's a blog by Michael Niehaus, who's the principal PM manager for all of Intune in Azure. He may have something on his site.
I'm going to get some bonus points here, and Neil, you can't respond to this, but what does OOF mean to Microsofties?
You don't want me to respond?
You can't, because you work for Microsoft.
Okay.
It means out of office to me, but
No.
No.
The original is OOF is out of facility.
out of facility.
That was the original Microsoft statement when they did out of office message.
That's why you see some people that use the OOO.
Yep.
O, capital O, lowercase, capital O. Semantic point.
There is one I don't know. When people say S plus me, what does that mean?
What is it?
Schedule
S
me.
plus me. Schedule me. Is that what it means?
Yeah, S plus
schedule me
is a schedule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Schedule
right,
plus.
Yeah. You know,
Well, again, I mentioned that if I know what it means, everyone knows what it means.
So Christian,
I want like an out of facility and an OOF sign that I can put on my son's bathroom door. You know?
Yeah, I believe so. I just and this is just acronym soup, right? You know what Microsoft's like. It's just acronym soup. We have an internal glossary that I've hired five people into the group I work in. I say I've hired, but I've been part of the interview process, and all of them, or four of them, were non-Microsofties to begin with, and they're like, what does all this stuff mean? So we actually have an internal tool, which is glossary at Microsoft.com, where you just put the acronym in and it'll give you all the options and you can work out which one is most appropriate to the message.
You know what needs to happen though, once they go live with the live translator, the translation services, is to have just the acronym translation services. So the AI needs to be smart enough to understand the applicable acronyms for your organization and in context,
no one needs that.
And have your mobile device and it pop up. You know, so you're sitting there in a meeting going like this, and then you look down at the app of your phone and it's like, oh yeah, that's what that is. There was so internal at Microsoft. So there used to be this little text-based application where you could go in and add in the acronym for any person, and it would automatically show the chain all the way up to, you know, Bill Gates, the leadership of that person. What's great about that, you could add in multiple. So you could add in your own alias, I should say, and the other person's alias. And you can see, we share the same VP or the same GM within that tree. And that was just a phenomenal tool to be sitting there in a large organization and be like, who is this person? I'm like, should I know who this person is? Like, that's why, that's them. That's what they're doing here in this discussion. And before I tell them they don't know what they're talking about, now I can do it. And informed, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. No, but there was also a similar tool that for acronym lookup. And I used it a few times when I remembered it was there. But some people were joking that the initial push for Project Cortex was really about just getting clear information around the acronyms that existed within the organization. I think that was even a scenario that was shared when it was first announced. Creating those wiki-like pages so that you could clarify the confusing acronyms within your organization. But anyway.
Yeah. And I think that got highlighted a lot with the whole Outlook Web Access and Office Web Application Server. That was the key one for me that just nailed it. It's like OA and OA. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Question number 5. It's a longer one. Timothy asks, so he starts out, I always like this when they've lost hope. Not sure where to go for help with this. Yeah, we're not either. I have been working on Word files at work. Okay, common scenario. Scripts, adding links to websites, things like that in Word. Originally, I was working on Word files at work and then emailing the files to myself at home through work email. I started having issues being able to open my files. Then started having issues with being able to print the files that I emailed to myself. So there's a lot of things that a lot of problems I have with this scenario, just for what he's described. Dumping scripts and links into a Word doc, emailing those to home, and then printing them out. The links don't work when I print them out. No, that's not the question. So started having issues being able to open my files. Then started having issues with being able to print the files that I emailed to myself. I stopped emailing Word files and instead just started typing up what I needed in Word, then copying and pasting that text in an email and sending that to myself. Somehow this caught a security tech computer issue that transferred to my personal laptop, and I do not understand how that happened. I had to completely reset my laptop and now reloading all the software that I had. My files are backed up on a separate unattached backup drive. I'm scared to open the Word files that I use and did work in, but I need that information from there. Any thoughts about that scenario?
So first, what is the security tech computer issue?
Yes.
What I don't understand is it like a pop-up, or is it what?
Sounds like a virus kind of pop-up issue with whatever they're using for protection on their systems. That's what I would.
I gotta say, Timothy, thank you very much for this very elaborate, description you gave us, but it doesn't give us a lot of information in terms of what you're actually seeing. I mean, if we have some idea what the security tech computer issue is, that can actually, and how it transferred to your personal laptop. I'm not understanding if it was a pop-up from an antivirus or anti-malware or anti-phishing. How did it get transferred to your personal computer? I mean, I'm not putting two and two together, I guess.
Yeah, my thought is that depending on what kinds of links and scripts they are, where they're being pulled from, and you send that via email, you click on that and open it, then you're going to be subject to whatever spam, whatever malicious attacks that are attached to that link, to that website.
But if it's actually a script file, though, Outlook isn't all those script files.
It strips it out.
It strips it out. It says it's a malformed email, unless it's just like because I know that happens with Word macro files. If you put a Word macro file attached to Outlook, if you put a script file, any kind of a script file, VBS, even PS1s. I mean, PS1s will come across and say, "Hey, this could harm your computer." But if it's just a doc file or a docx, I mean. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand.
So we're talking about. Sorry, I got distracted from it. We're talking about docx with links in, and the links are being.
Well, he's talking in script files. I mean, that's what he's saying. Script, adding links to websites, things like that in Word. Is he actually editing HTML? I don't.
Indirectly.
I've never seen a scenario where a link in a Word file would cause a problem.
Not in the Word file itself, but by clicking on it and going to whatever that destination is, that could have caused the problem.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so if the link's in the Word file and you click the link, if you think about the way Microsoft, how we email, every URL is validated. We use the Outlook protection system and Exchange. There's all kinds of stuff in there that does URL validation. Even, I go back to my Sentinel session last week in Branson. Right, URL detonation detection. Right, you're looking for URLs that don't make sense. I had a demo. Unfortunately, I couldn't run it. But if you provided any kind of URL that had a specific structure in it, maybe to a known endpoint that was known to be bad, it would isolate that completely and send you just get a simple message that says your URL's been it's been isolated. You're not able to access this. And in the back end, Sentinel options. Some manual intervention as well that can do URL detonation and investigate where that goes in a completely restricted sandbox environment to prove whether it was safe or not. But that's a security follow-up. But certainly in Outlook, if I click a link, even in Edge, if you look at Edge these days, it says validating URL when you try and load something. The restrictions are pretty clean. Depends where you're. If you're hosted in an O365 environment or M365 environment. So the question is, do you trust it?
So just responding to another side question here. Yeah, I don't know. Any other parting thoughts on that question? I think.
I mean, he's saying that he's scared to open the files that I used and did work in. I don't think he should be afraid to do that if he's already done it. I mean, if there's any damage that's been done, it's already been done. But I don't think there's actually been any damage done. I don't know that for sure.
Well, in these situations, if there's some concern I have about it, I open it in a VM. But
well, you can open it in safe mode too, right? I mean, in safe mode in Word, you can launch Word in safe mode still, can't you? Can you launch Word with the Shift key?
Shift, I think. Yeah.
Is it Shift or Control? It's one of the.
Yeah.
You can open all Office apps in safe mode.
I'll do a follow up in his post and see if he's got any additional detail that he can share. And for anybody that has a similar issue to this, again, you can email us at officehours@collabtalk.com and we'll respond. So we don't have to be in the middle of the live stream. Anytime we'll see it and we'll respond to it.
So that brings up an interesting question I have for you, Christian.
Yes.
Did you ever invite Julie?
I did. Yeah, she was a tentative for today.
Oh, okay.
By the way, safe mode with Word is Control.
Also, if you're going to say that you're having issues with things, please, if you could sort of describe, have a little description of what those issues might be. Issues being able to open a file. What issues? Being able to print the files that I emailed myself. Well, what? I mean, what happened? What happens when you try? Give us some ideas.
Right. And my safe word is zebra.
Yeah.
Just to throw that out there.
Well, and that leads into question number 6 because.
Wait, zebra does what?
I gotta tell you, yeah. No.
Okay. All right.
I gotta tell you, Justice, we need a little bit more information.
Yeah. So everybody, here's what it is. So Justice says, "I'm new here. Anyone help with this message?" And and I'll just kind of flash this over on the screen here. There it is. Getting tasks ready with an exclamation. It says when I try to open tasks, it just shows the image below and does nothing else. And so where are you trying to open that from?
Yeah.
Is it an Outlook?
It's not an Outlook message I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's the new tasks feature in Teams.
Could be Outlook.
Could be Outlook. So so where are you trying to open that? My assumption was in Teams. No, it should be generally available to everybody that's out there. So a little more detail of where you're trying to open it. If it is within Teams, are you trying to do that within the desktop, within the browser, within mobile device?
And that applies to Outlook too.
And Outlook as well.
Outlook in the desktop or Outlook in the browser.
Yep. So that's one I'd love to discuss more, but we need a little bit more information of what you're experiencing. Have you guys gone in and played with the tasks, formerly the planner app? I mean, I believe it's supposed to be. They said, we were joking about this last week, that the tasks app in Teams was being deployed. They started in July. It was supposed to be completed by the end of September, and so and then making that transition. So they're renaming the planner app into the task app, but also changing it, adding functionality. And it was supposed to be wrapped up. Now, whether it has concluded, whether it's now generally available, it's on everybody's tenant, I don't know.
Sounds like they're moving the bodies again.
It still shows planner for me.
Okay. Yeah. So that's something we need to go and kick the tires around and ask some questions. I've just not had a chance since last week. So I'm still recovering.
What have you been up to, Christian?
I've been recovering from being gone for a week. Had a lot of family stuff over the weekend and church stuff over the weekend, and so just haven't been able to. I'm just looking at the hundreds of emails since Thursday.
And you did spend almost a week with me and Amy, so
yep, that's true. So got zero done while hanging out with Neil.
That's a lifespan shortener.
Yeah. All right, let's jump to question number 7. By the way, and live stream is working everywhere, by the way. So it's just did a refresh in Facebook. Yeah. So still have a handful of people that are watching on Facebook, and people also out there on Periscope and on Twitter and on LinkedIn and also on the Tube of Views. All right, number 7. Danny says, hi, everyone. I am receiving signals of a few users who say that for multiple shared mailboxes, the read-unread status is not synchronized. So these are shared mailboxes. Some have 0 unread emails, which appears to be correct, but others still have 100 plus emails marked as unread. Check for possible issues on Exchange Online, but the services are green. So for a shared inbox, for shared email, going in and reviewing that, why is it still showing as 100 plus emails marked as unread?
Cache mode.
What is it, Mike?
Cache mode.
Cache mode. I can tell you, I mean, more than a couple times I've run into cache mode causing exact issues just like this.
Yeah, I'll get that without even shared mailboxes.
Yeah. Outboxes hanging, inbox not updating when you move it to an email from one folder to another. That's all.
It'll look like a ghost message.
Yeah, and once you turn off cache mode and then it resyncs, then everything is like, oh yeah, it matches exactly what's on the Exchange server. Well, yeah, because you're not caching it in an OST file locally.
That's pretty straightforward.
That's about as straightforward as anything gets during this show.
Yeah.
Oh no! Earlier we had one that was more straightforward. It was yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
The only thing that I have to say though is that he said he's receiving it from a few users. Now, usually that's cache mode is set on a organizational level, or if it's people who have workstations that are directly connected to the internal LAN, usually don't have cache mode. It's people who are, mobile laptops or that are VPN'd in or, that connect remotely. That's my assumption because we are in times of remote workers. So I'm assuming that.
Well, where's the Exchange server?
Yeah. Well, it happens when you're running with O365 though, too. Right, because O365 Exchange is just Exchange. It's no different. So it can be either one.
So that would explain why you might have people with seeing a difference. As some people see it as cleared and others not.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Especially and not only that, but are they all using mobile app or are they all using OWA, God forbid, or are they using, the desktop Outlook? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing about that is desktop Outlook, when you're connecting to an Exchange server, automatically selects cached mode. So
Yeah.
if you're not aware of that,
And then usually they set group policy to turn that off. If they're on the LAN, they set the group policy. If they're on the LAN, turn it off. Because there's really no reason to have it if you have a desktop and you're on the LAN, but whatever.
Well, you know what they say that a clean desk is a sign of a person with a lot of free time. So showing that you've got 100 plus emails still in there, it's like, look, I'm slammed, I'm busy.
I gotta say, we had this conversation last week. Not to go off on a tangent here, but
Too late.
I don't know how you guys are dealing. I mean, I've been working from home for 10 plus years.
Yep.
But I don't know how you guys are doing, but I mean, we're getting a lot of conversations now about people that just, they can't keep focus anymore. They can't, they're having a real hard time even trying to get the simplest tasks done. Just because, of this whole work at home COVID, there goes Christian coffee.
Yeah. I got the COVIDs. No.
But I don't know how you guys are dealing with that, but I mean, I'm finding that more people are commenting that they're just not getting stuff done.
Yeah, it's look. I think we all have those kind of slumps, and a lot of times it's you've got the whole the big rocks, medium rocks, little rocks, and we focus on the little stuff and never get the big ones done. And a lot of those blockers can be these huge boulders that we have to go and get done. And one of the best ways to kind of unblock things is to go and focus on one really big, nasty, hard problem that needs to be accomplished. Once you get that done, and it just seems to open up the flow of things. I mean, I'm trying to do a couple different things. I mean, I'm a list guy. I've got sticky notes all over my desk. I've got, I use To-Do, I use Planner for each of those for different clients, different projects. And one of the things that I'm trying to do is really use the, the To-Do, the My Day, and organize, hey, here's what I need to do with the checklist, and just keep that going. That helps keep me focused. Organize them by order of importance, what I need to work on. So if I do get kind of sideswiped by an issue, need to go do something, then I can come back to that. I try to leave it open on my right monitor so I always see that running tally. That's the first thing that I do. The second thing is you need to break up your day into smaller chunks. To say that, hey, I just need to spend the next 3 days working on this one thing, it's really hard to do that. You need to attack it for a couple hours, step away from it, go do something else, take breaks. So one of the things that the takeaways from Ignite that I really appreciate, while I was frustrated and also happy with the smaller session times for a lot of these important topics, which can make it difficult to do a deep dive into a more technical topic. The reality is that we need to consume information in smaller chunks, and break up our time. I love the focus on the well-being, the taking walks, get up. I've got my weight bench right off to the side, so I'm doing that a dozen times throughout the day, taking breaks just to get some exercise. But those are the two things I'm doing: to do and breaking up my work into chunks. Any other tidbits, guys?
I take my dog for a walk. I'm trying to loosen it up. But like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm kind of used to the cadence. I'm kind of used to. It's just the people that I'm working with aren't, so it kind of slows me down, or it creates obstacles, if you will. Yeah. Some folks are receptive to help, some folks aren't, but that's just it's just the way people are. Yeah.
I agree with the break it up idea. Any task that seems insurmountable, anything you can break up into smaller chunks to make it more approachable. I've certainly done that a number of times.
Yep. All right, question number 8. Joe asks, is it possible to be signed into 2 teams' accounts at the same time?
Another quick answer. Yes.
Yes, with a web browser.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it depends.
Or a sandbox.
Yeah. It's, so as Sean mentioned, like we're both users of Rambox. It's a free application that's out there. Tom Daly, another MVP, turned me on to that. Or you could do this with multiple browser windows in the incognito mode.
In private.
Yep, private mode. And so you can log in and have multiple tabs that are open. I like Rambox. Essentially does the same thing. I think it eats up a lot less RAM than does using Chrome tabs. I'm not sure how it compares to.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
Don't look at your task manager. It eats up just as much. Anything with a Chromium basis is going to chew up RAM like crazy.
Is there any performance improvement using Edge browser in that way? Or, I mean, is there any difference?
I haven't analyzed it, but, in essence, I've looked at, Chrome and I've looked at Rambox running, and they both chew up.
Yeah.
A boatload of RAM. It's just the basis of, Chromium does a lot to frame buffer different things and pull them down, but it is what it is.
Yeah. But it's nice to have that. And if I'm trying to do something that is more intensive, is I will shut down that Rambox entirely. Then I just have one application that I'm shutting down and opening right back up, logging back in those environments. So if I'm doing something like live streaming, I'll shut down those additional services. I've got Rambox off now.
Or Christian could get 128 gig of RAM for a system, like I've got.
There you go.
Be okay.
That's all right.
Chrome will still take all of it.
It will.
Yeah.
I think.
Sadly,
I think it does size its needs based on what you provide. The system provides.
The level of debt rising to meet income. It's the whole
That's right.
same thing.
Yep.
Yep.
You gotta live within your means.
All right.
So I will.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add. I don't know if anybody has used a application virtualization. Obviously Microsoft has theirs, right? But I've used one called turbo.net, and they actually have teams. So you can have teams running in a container on your desktop, and you can open up that container a dozen times, and you can
That's
have
what
all
Rambox
different
is.
sessions of teams running.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's basically what Rambox does. But I've never seen this turbo. I'll have to check it out.
Turbo.net.
So it's like desktop Kubernetes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you can run Teams in Docker, which I'm sure that somebody comes up with a Docker image, you can run Docker for desktop, and then you can, Docker for desktop now runs Kubernetes. So you can run, you'd be able to spin up how many instances of Teams you need to, and run them all inside of a little Kubernetes inside of Docker desktop. You can do that too. But I don't think anybody's come up with an image for Teams for Docker yet.
They haven't want to be massacred.
Challenge not accepted.
Well, I know that Teams runs on Linux now. So they got the preview of Teams running in Linux, which I don't know if anybody on this call was born with Linux. I was. That's how I came to be in technology. Yeah, Neil too. So, using X Windows in Linux, you have to be able to have that. But if you don't have a Linux desktop, there's something called WSL, which will be coming out with Linux graphical capability here in a little while, which is native to Windows. So you'll be able to run, for all Linux folks out there, you'll be able to run WSL, run your favorite distro with the graphics capability, and then run Teams inside of it if you want to do that. So it sounds like a future blog post. It's coming out. Once that has the ability to do it.
Set yourself up.
Mike, is that homework for yourself? Is that what you're saying?
I'll do it. But WSL, it's not even in private yet. They haven't gotten that out yet. So.
All right. Question number 9. Pravin Kumar says, I have a shared mailbox named XXX where 2 users have access to it and access in their Outlook. User needs the shared calendar in the same shared mailbox to auto-accept meeting invites, which is not happening. I can see we need to manually accept the meeting invites. I can see the resource or room mailbox, which is usually used to book conference rooms, has the capability to auto-accepting invite settings in Office 365. How can I implement the same scenario to the shared mailbox with auto-accept invites?
First of all, I want to know what's inside of a shared mailbox called XXX. What kind of content is inside?
Those are sensitive meetings, Mike.
Come on.
21 or older to enter those meetings.
Yeah. Meetings with lots of attachments. Is it the same guy asking about how to unblock attachments?
No.
Sorry.
I thought this was a family show.
This is. So. Clean it up, people. Come on. No,
I'm not aware of a mailbox that can do auto accept. I'm aware of it's shared, but I mean, I'm not aware of that. A resource can do auto accept, but it has to be a resource. I don't know you guys. If you guys know a way, but
I never used auto accept.
You probably need like a
Me either.
macro. That'd be a bit weird. I never auto accept anything because it puts me at risk.
Yeah. See, now I've
It's
set up resources that were conference rooms, and you can set those up to auto accept. That's not a big deal.
Which is what he's mentioning. So the problem with the shared, I mean, it makes sense that it wouldn't be available in a shared resource because you need to coordinate that with multiple people.
Correct. Right. I mean, it's not an entity on itself. The entity on itself, like a resource, can control what it can accept and not accept and do everything. I mean, a shared resource is owned by several people or more than one person. So it can't actually do the accept, can it? I don't know that, I guess.
Well, based on what he's saying, probably not.
Yeah. Logically, it shouldn't. I mean, so a resource that makes sense because you want to. It's a shared resource or it's a room. It will auto accept those things unless, of course, it's already booked for that time, and therefore it would reject something within that time period is if auto booked. But then you'd also be able to go in as that resource and you'd be able to see its availability. With a shared mailbox, like I don't want you accepting on my behalf if we're on a planning team around that. It needs to be discussed. It needs to be a manual add. But
to be an alternative to that, they can just create a resource calendar and then give that shared mailbox rights to that calendar. I mean, then it would work well because I mean the resource is standalone. So.
Yeah, I think that I've not gone and just done a search on that to see if that's, but I think a quick search and looking at what are the attributes of a shared mailbox and probably explains what it can and cannot do and why it doesn't have that option. All right. Yeah, so if nobody wants to go look to see if that's the case or not, I'll move on to the next question. Nils Eric says, so number 10 here, is there any way to password protect a specific Outlook folder or secure it in another way? At our company, everyone can access anyone's computer. However, users want to keep some stuff private. For example, the CEO doesn't want everyone to read the management mails, etc.
Yikes!
Yeah, right.
Anyone can access anyone else's computer. Like the CEO doesn't want anybody to see his stuff.
That's a very interesting collective.
Hey, you can come into my office and use my computer anytime.
I mean, when they say use the computer, does that mean anyone can log on to anyone else's machine? And when they get there, are they admins on those machines?
Yeah, or is it everybody has
a good question?
Password?
Because
so separately, next question saying that we have huge security issues in our system. Why is this? It's.
I mean, if everyone, everyone's an admin, right? You can go in, you can open the users hive in the on the disk and grant yourself access rights to everyone else's stuff. If they're just regular users,
and then shut everybody else out, block everybody else. That would be fun.
But if they're regular users with roaming profiles, technically they shouldn't be able to access other people's stuff unless there's a few workarounds, but they shouldn't be able to unless they're admins, and then they can go over. They can grant themselves rights.
Yeah, but they'd have had to set themselves up with roaming profiles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the problem. Is it just they just all have logons to? I mean, what?
Yeah.
We don't even know this is an Active Directory environment.
Right.
You don't even know. It could be a work group environment. It could be not using non Microsoft logins. There's a lot of variables here, but number one, you should really consider looking at your security policy. I would put that as the highest priority.
And in case the inference isn't clear, we're wondering that you've got any security.
Right. Yeah, that's
today you can't survive with this. There's
I think it's safe to say that if this Nils Eric that is non-standard.
Yeah.
that in general, like you should have some
And
semblance of
non-ideal.
security. Yeah, it's not ideal. Everyone have access, and whether that actually means that they have access to everything, or if talking about this, but that everyone can access anyone's computer really means is that you've got public teams, public team sites, that most information is public and not private. There might be a little more, this may be lacking in some of the detail to connect the dots between it. So I would hope that it's not just wide open and everybody has access, because all you need is one angry employee to go in and get creative and shut things down, lock people out.
You end up having a very bad day.
And your company doesn't exist anymore. Or is it everyone access everyone else's computer means everybody has admin access and can do whack whack hostname, whack $, and now I'm in. Is it that? I mean, what are we actually talking about? What is the element? Give us an example of someone accessing someone else's machine.
Yeah.
I'll ask him for some additional information there.
Yeah.
I definitely need it.
All right. Question.
The way that we used to run that in the newsroom back in the day, and this is Exchange 5.5, we had a thing called Profile Maker. And when a person would sign in, you would get that first, and it would build your Outlook profile on the fly, so anybody could go onto anybody else's machine. But they would still get their own personal Outlook profile when they did that.
Yeah. But whatever's on that local machine, if they are an admin user, it doesn't matter. They'd be able to see it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's one other potential scenario here that it's almost like similar to we think about kiosk mode today, right? When people log on to kiosks, and they all log on with it.
Those are usually standard users.
No, they're not. Well, that's because we think of kiosk mode today.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine a scenario where there's 10 PCs. They all have the same local account, username and password.
Yep.
So we're all logging on as the same person.
Yeah.
And we might have a folder on the drive that's like my name.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it
but that's
doesn't
the
mean,
honor
it doesn't
system.
mean right.
Yeah.
So that's another potential scenario here where that's it's not even security by obscurity. It's less than that.
Yep.
Yeah, and the same thing goes. I mean, when you talk about that example, Neil, and I mean a kiosk in its definition, it's not like you're supposed to be able to install anything on a kiosk.
Right. It's kiosk, the kiosk today, right? Is something very different.
The last time we've used that I remember that exact scenario was in the mid to late 90s in a support operations role, where we had that login. Just anybody within that, but it was a workstation sitting in a pod of cubicles, and so anyone on call would log into those systems. But to your point, any notes or anything, they would have to attach their user ID, their name, or something within the running notes. But it was essentially everybody was logged in as that support
Common
rep
local
or whatever.
account.
Correct.
Yeah.
Common local.
You also would not store confidential or corporate confidential information on those machines.
No.
Yep.
Sounds like that's what's happening here.
But
Yeah,
that's intentional as well. You wouldn't want there's that separation, firewalled off from that. But yeah, exactly. Sorry, Mike.
Well, back then too, it tied back to licensing, because when we were doing remote access, it was always the thing about licensing. It was always they only wanted to pay for one user. They didn't want to pay for 5 users,
Right,
or 10 users, or whatever. So they would create one login with one password, and everybody would get the same access.
right, right. Yep. All right. Question 11. So we got a little bit less than 15 to go. Ra asks, does anyone know if there is, so odd wording on this thing, but I think it's a good question here. Does anyone know if there is a way to download video on Microsoft Teams that are published without the download option? There is any app that makes me able to get the video via the link as for Facebook or Instagram. So so obviously there's ways if you're sharing a video on Facebook or Instagram or elsewhere that you could just grab the URL for that video and share it instantly. And the key difference is here is that any video that's created that's stored within Stream, so in Teams, it's meant for the enterprise. So there is no public shared URL for that. If you want to publicly share, so anybody that has access to that team could have gone in and participated within your organization, should have access to that video content within the enterprise. So that's what it's meant. It's meant for an intra-company sharing of that content. If you want to share that recording publicly, like we do with these, this Teams recording, we're actually streaming straight to YouTube, so I'm not having to upload anymore because I'm capturing the Restream and OBS, the recording, and it goes straight to YouTube. I don't have to re-upload anything. I can share that. But in past episodes, I've had to download the stream recording so that we've captured in Teams and do some editing and re-upload that to YouTube and then share out that link for everyone to view. I am not aware of, because there is no automatic pull it down, share the link for anything captured within Teams in that way.
Yeah, if you're within the enterprise, you like you say, Christian, you can go back into the core stream where it's actually stored, and loosen the permissions, but not from an external perspective, not outside of the enterprise.
We talked about this 2 weeks ago, and it's come up from time to time. It is not the intent for Microsoft to build Stream into a YouTube replacement.
Right.
It's so there are a lot of requests. I believe there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of upvotes in user voice for an anonymous access URL capability within Stream. So basically that public capability. I don't know what Microsoft's plans are for doing that, but it's not been part of the roadmap to go and do that. They may provide something like that. I still don't know if there will be, steps in between. If you can at the time of recording, if you can mark something as make it publicly accessible so that it records it in a different location or a different way for that sharing. But I think that it needs to be, for a security standpoint, for the enterprise, that it needs to be an additional window, and another option that you intentionally make that selection to make it shareable externally. Like I get the way that it is, and while I'd love for that process to be streamlined for the stuff that we do, that we want to share that out quickly and publicly, but I understand the way that why it's architected and built the way that it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Secure by default.
Yep. All right. Nathan, number 12, asks, has anybody created and outlined basic expectations or rules to follow regarding the use of Teams? We're having issues where younger year groups, so it sounds like the education sector, like to start random posts. And
education sector.
Yeah, there's some great guidance that's out there. You certainly Microsoft out in the adoption guidelines, adoption.microsoft.com. There's a lot of great resources that are out there. Matt Wade, fellow MVP, has created like a Teams etiquette guide, which is a great place to go and start. He's at Jump 365, or is it Jump or Jump 2 365? Anyway, but Matt Wade, you can go and find that content. Any other thoughts on?
Well, it depends. I mean, if it's just a policy thing, I mean, you can go out there and search acceptable use policies for, social media and intercommunications. I mean, it should be all part of it. If it's an enterprise tool, it should be put into the policy that the people are already governed by.
Search for Lotus same time.
Yeah.
We were probably right back then too, but
there's some great links on docs.com, and a lot of our partners, and I'm going to name one. I know Microsoft aren't. Well, I'm going to name two. I'm not recommending this solution, but certainly AvePoint and ShareGate even have done Teams governance guidance. The Microsoft one is, I'll put it in the chat window.
Yeah, I've seen a couple blog.
is-
So Matt Wade has been blogging. So he created some posts on this topic around his team's etiquette that are on the AvPoint blog. So there's a lot of great content that's out there around this. And I'm sure if you do a search, you can find things that are particular for your industry, for the education sector. There's a ton of resources out there for EDU and best practices.
A lot of the stuff I see, though, like from a governance standpoint, tends to be about naming standards and conventions and things like, what would you call, how would you manage guest access? It's not necessarily about random chats, which is more of a IM unstructured kind of situation. I think that's from a governance standpoint. In terms of chat, that's more of an education thing. What should you talk about? What's appropriate? And what's the, I'm going to use a word, but I really don't want to use this word. What are the consequences of talking about inappropriate things in a chat?
Yeah.
Because kids will be kids. If they're talking about younger people, kids will be kids.
Yeah, Christian, I wouldn't necessarily read this as an education sector sort of thing. I just interpret this to mean we've got younger people in our organization.
Yeah, could be. Yep.
But
but
nevertheless, what Neil's saying is,
Right.
spot on.
Well, this again, a recurring thing that we've talked about is the importance of community management. It's not, so healthy governance of any collaboration or information management system. There, of course, you have your, the strict rules, the guidelines for the things that you publish that are out there, and then you have to have that proactive, real-time community management. And it's and maybe there's a wrong way to phrase this, but I think of like when you're training a puppy, you don't just the dog does something wrong, you don't just slap its nose, no, don't do that thing. It's like, what am I doing? You redirect it, and so you that active redirection. Like if you find that the dog sometime in the 2 hours that you were gone to the store wet the rug, you don't go smack the dog. It's a done deal, but you catch them in the act of doing that, and that's when you redirect them, train them, point them in the right direction. And not that we need to treat our people in our environments like a puppy. Sometimes you do. Slap their nose.
Stimulus.
Give them a treat,
Associate.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, right, from the standpoint of, if you're inside a team that's directed at a specific business function. Let's say you're inside, whatever it might be, HR team, right? You're the HR team. You have a team. You have channels in there. The standards of etiquette inside there may well end up being very different from the standards of, hey, I just pinged you four guys on a side chat and we're having a conversation. Now, is that stuff captured and recorded? Should it be monitored? There's pros and cons for each. But I would feel more comfortable having a conversation that was, I would say, not inappropriate, but let's say not formally business standard conversation in a side chat with you guys versus in a team channel where it's visible now to everybody in the team.
Another example of that, Neil, is LinkedIn. If you see that where people will go in and talk about, here's what I ate for lunch, or do some of the very personal, jokey kind of stuff, and you immediately see the community react, and people will be like, hey, this isn't the right place for those kinds of posts. And let's leave that for Facebook. This is about business. This is about professional. Right. And yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And even in my team, we have a, if I look at my Fast Track for Azure team that I'm in, there's a bunch of teams, there's tens of channels, all denoted to different aspects of Azure, different capabilities, functionalities, different PM topics. They're all formal. On our side, I have a chat with my pod, the 8 people plus my manager in my team, and we talk about all kinds of stuff there. Now, it's never inappropriate, but it's always, hey, what did you have for lunch? It is that there, and everyone accepts that. It's fine. I just talked about bringing Branson last week. We talked about hanging out with people. That's, while we do occasionally have business topic discussions there. Mostly it's just my team trying to be social with my team since we're all socially distanced right now. So there's a spectrum of governance, so to speak, or appropriateness for where those conversations should happen.
Yep. And the right way for look, if I own a team and a channel that's around program planning, project management type stuff, and I see people in there doing clearly personal, and I might go in there and just say, hey, this is something to be more appropriate. Why don't you guys do a chat offline around that? And that's all you need is a nudge or a redirect to that. It's similar when people are sending stuff via email as an attachment and be like, hey, can you instead send it as a link that we can co-edit on? Or better yet, let's put it over in Teams. This could be happening and tracking the conversation over in Teams, and maybe share the thread, that email over into that conversation, and then take it up there. And sometimes that's all it takes is that gentle redirect, but that's part of community management.
Yeah, community management, and I think also from an organizational standpoint, if a company comes in today, it's difficult with enormous organizations, right? You think about Microsoft with 200,000 people, but if let's say you're a 500-person business and you're going to adopt Teams, it's much easier to lay those ground rules across a smaller group of people and say, listen, here's a training, here's what the team is for, here's what your chat is for, right? And just you want to ping someone one-on-one or just have a 3-way, 4-way conversation, use chat. If that develops into a business conversation and something more formal, take the output of that into the team. That's how we operate. That's how my team operates right now. And share the findings with the broader community.
Hey, in our final 1 minute, I think that we're not going to do the Skype for Business to on-prem to Teams, the migration question. A little more involved. I think we'll hold that one over. I think that's a good topic for next week.
Could I ask if we do number 16? Because that's a pretty quick one.
Yeah. Gregorio's asks, want to know if there's a way to schedule a meeting in which at the beginning everyone waits in the waiting room, but after giving access to the participants, the meeting remains open. I want nobody waits in the waiting room anymore once the person's in there.
No, not in Teams. Yeah, and this has been an issue because we had one company that I worked with that actually switched back to Zoom because you have that capability in Zoom. Where you can turn off the waiting room after you started the meeting, but you can't do that in Teams.
Yep.
We'll end on a high note.
Yep.
Yeah. So one other. So 14. We could do 14 as well. Eddie says, "Is there a way to take notes in Teams that is just for my eyes only, not with all the participants in the meeting?" And
it's called OneNote.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
OneNote.
OneNote is the way to do that, right? So. If you want to save that in Teams, if you want to save something in Teams that no one else can see, why are you saving it up in Teams? Just use OneNote. If you don't want anybody to see it, the best way to not have people see it is not put it in a place that everyone has access to.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can always you can take all those notes from that if you want to save it for posterity, but in a lockdown way, stick it in a Word document, password protect it, and stick it out there where people can see it and not open it and then get frustrated by it. But why?
It's easy to do dictionary text against password protection.
Words easy to hack.
Yeah. But it's again, why are you trying to do that? If you don't want people to have access to, don't put it up in the cloud.
Yeah, don't put it somewhere where they can find it.
Yeah. I have a lot of local OneNote, notes that are exactly that scenario. If it's shared, then I put it up in a OneNote tab up in Teams where everybody could have access to it.
But Christian has lots of things he doesn't want people to find.
You don't know that.
Like
You're correct, but you don't know that.
Exactly.
Right.
He's got that shared mailbox, that XXX mailbox.
Well, I'll end on this high note, but I know some of you have heard me share this. But so when I sold my company to Rational back in 2001, software company, we at the time we had the most. So we had the highest number. Or we had free apps for Rational software tools, Rational Rows, ClearCase, other things. And we were the #1 location for free downloads. We had hundreds of them that were available through this location. So we had a lot of traffic. When we sold the company, we said, all right, and you get the domain name for our company. And they're like, oh, we don't care about that. We're like, well, it expires here in about 6 months. Yeah, we don't care. We're like, all right, we're going to transfer it all to you. Like, don't care, don't want it. So we sold it. 6 months later, I was driving down. I remember where I was. I was around Hayward, driving down across a bridge. And I get this frantic phone call from somebody. He's like, what's going on with your company? The company was COSES, QOSES, stood for Quality Object Oriented Software Engineering Systems. And COSES.com, it's like, what's going on? What do you mean what's going on? It's like, it's pointing to a porn site now. Like, what are you talking about? So I get in. So I had a bunch of the Rational software guys angry at me. I'm like, you guys bought
your
it.
chance.
I put in your name. Like, you guys didn't go renew it. I said it was heavily trafficked. I had to redirect to your website. Somebody went in there and bought the domain name. So they tried to go and battle it, but this company had legitimately bought a high traffic domain and redirected it. At the end of that year, Rational was able to get it back and fix it. But a year where it still got thousands, if not tens of thousands, I don't know, traffic. But here the running joke was when people would ask, because inevitably in the weeks after that happened, people would be like, yeah, what's going on with that? Be like, well, we found a more profitable business model.
Yeah.
made the switch from software over. No, but yeah, it's just, that just makes you think that just be very, very careful with that stuff. I still own domains that I have owned for years that I've not done anything with for those reasons. Having had that experience.
People are a bit wiser now
Yeah.
with domain names.
Yeah. But once it's gone legitimately on the block and they've bought it legally, there's nothing you can do, save for trademark infringement. But doing a redirect on a popular domain that you let expire, there's nothing you can do. So good times.
Okay. Guys, I have to drop for another meeting.
Gents,
Sorry.
yeah, thanks a lot.
Take care, Neil.
And for everybody that's watching, thanks a lot for everybody that jumped on. And again, the recording for this will be available out on YouTube. So we live streamed out. The recording will be up there. I'll provide the link list and a blog post later today for episode 29. I'll also be posting episode 28 from last week now that I'm back in town and kind of catch up with stuff. And you'll be able to find the link list.
The lost episode.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how much I produce of that video up there. So it should be fun.
Oh dear, be careful.
Should be fun.
Yeah.
But thanks everybody. And again, if you have any questions you'd like to address next week or anytime during the week, you can find us at officehours@collabtalk.com, and you can find the blog post out at buckleyplanet.com, my personal blog post. You can't miss the office hours, the logos for the blog posts. And you can see all the past episodes. And there's always a complete outline of every topic that we cover with a link to that time so that you don't have to watch the entire 90-minute video. You can jump to that specific point in the conversation. So
Yes, complete with witty pointers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Thanks a lot, gents. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
See you later. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.